Most of the generals agreed that's what should happen. Trump so ordered it. General Frank McKenzie of the U.S. Central Command was especially pleased. He had earlier made a special request that the carrier remain in theater amid the threats of revenge on Americans on the anniversary of Soleimani's killing, and had been surprised when Miller proceeded to ignore him and withdraw the ship. The easiest target for Iranian attackers would be U.S. troops in the region, he thought, and the Nimitz could provide significant support in staving off such an assault. The conversation in the Oval then shifted to public relations. How would the government explain the decision to turn the aircraft carrier around? They decided it would send a strong message if they were clear the change was due to Iran's threats. At the tail end of the meeting, in an exchange that lasted about 90 seconds, Trump shifted the topic to the upcoming protests. He turned to look at Miller. "You've got enough guys and you're all set for the 6th of January?" he asked. "Oh, yes, Mr. President," Miller replied. "We've got a plan." Trump nodded. "Just make sure it's all safe," Trump said. Milley thought this was pretty benign and that Trump sounded genuine. Still, when the meeting wrapped up, he approached Miller privately. Milley wanted to be clear that when Trump said, "You're all set," he was referring only to National Guard capabilities. "There's nothing else set, right?" Milley asked. Miller told him yes, the National Guard was all the president meant. Nothing else was in the works. On January 4th, Pentagon officials received a morning update on preparations for January 6th and learned the FBI had no credible reports of dangerous threats, but that the crowd estimate had risen to 20,000 based on hotel occupancy levels. The weather forecast was a clear day without rain, not what law enforcement officials hoping for a low turnout wanted to hear. Homeland Security officials reported that the two main points of protest would be at the Capitol and at the Ellipse near the White House. Washington, D.C. National Guard Commander William Walker said his team was helping D.C. police man key checkpoints, and D.C. police seemed to believe they had enough guard support. The Secret Service asked for 5 military civil support teams to help them in and around the White House. The FBI flagged in a briefing later that afternoon that agents had seen an increase in violent rhetoric on social media, just as Milley had on Dataminer, but there was nothing specific they could act on. At the White House, meanwhile, staffers were preparing for Trump to address the Save America rally at the Ellipse on January 6th. Advanced staff considered the best places to hang signs and mapped out where the president would stand and what the camera angles might be. Secret Service officers prepared how and when to safely move the president from the White House to the rally space. It was one thing for the president to encourage his supporters to gather in solidarity with his quest to overturn the election. It was another for him to take the stage and make the event his own. Some of Trump's advisers objected. "Holy cow," Kudlow told Meadows when he found out Trump would be speaking. "We shouldn't go near it." "It's going to be okay," Meadows assured him. "It's going to be okay." On January 4th, Trump was due in Dalton, Georgia, for a massive nighttime rally with Perdue and Loeffler on the eve of the runoff. But the president's mind was not on the Senate and whether Republicans would retain their majority. It was on whether he could retain his power. Before departing late that afternoon, Trump met in the Oval Office with Pence, who had just returned from a campaign trip earlier in the day to Georgia. They were joined by Giuliani and John Eastman, a law professor with solid conservative credentials, having clerked for Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and served as dean of the Chapman University School of Law. Eastman had a history with Trump. He had been encouraging the president earlier in the year to end birthright citizenship by executive order, something Barr had worked repeatedly to prevent from happening. When Barr had argued to Trump that an order taking people's citizenship away retroactively would never stand up in court, the president said he knew a legal scholar who claimed the opposite. Eastman argued that the president could clarify by executive order that citizenship does not extend to children born of parents who were only temporarily visiting the United States. In the run-up to January 6th, Eastman had argued that Pence could conceivably object to certification and send electoral votes back to states and force state legislatures to review the votes. This helped get Trump all spun up, though even Eastman realized this was merely a theory, not a likely outcome. But Trump, always optimistic about his chances, eagerly pursued Eastman's legal theory. In the January 4th meeting with Pence, Trump introduced Eastman to the vice president. "This guy's a really respected constitutional lawyer," Trump said. "He thinks you have more authority. Let's talk it through." Eastman discussed two historical examples of vice presidents intervening during certification. The first was from 1801, when then Vice President Thomas Jefferson presided over the certification of his own election as president. There was a dispute over certifying Georgia's slate of electors because a page was missing due to a clerical error. Jefferson refused to wait and simply accepted electors from Georgia in his favor. This was an imperfect analogy,